My name is Rowan Hayes, and the moment that defined my entire existence began with the sound of my own body failing me. My knees hit the hardwood floor of the living room with a sickening thud. My windpipe felt like it had been clamped shut by a vice. I clawed at the Persian rug, my vision swimming with black spots, desperate for a single molecule of oxygen. Standing directly above me was my younger sister, Bianca. She held my red rescue inhaler between her thumb and forefinger, dangling it just out of my reach like a treat for a dog. She wasn't scared. She wasn't rushing to help. She was grinning. "Suffocate, you drama queen," she whispered, her eyes dancing with amusement. Behind her, my parents sat on the velvet love seat, sipping their evening tea. They watched my face turn purple. They watched my fingers scrape against the floor. And they didn't move a muscle. That was the freezing cold afternoon I learned a brutal truth. You can die in the middle of your family's living room, and they will simply wait for the commercial break. 19 years went by before I saw that scene again. But the second time I wasn't on the floor. I was watching it play out on a massive 4K monitor in a Boston federal courthouse. And just before the screen went black, the room saw something that ripped the mask off my family forever. For most of my life, I thought making myself invisible was the only way to survive the Hayes household. We lived in a sprawling historic brownstone in Beacon Hill that projected effortless elegance to the outside world. Manicured ivy, polished brass knockers, and a reputation for charitable giving. But inside, the atmosphere was suffocating. My mother, Madeline, curated our lives like an art exhibit. Everything had to be aesthetically pleasing and utterly silent. My father, Richard, was a high-powered architect who viewed emotions as structural weaknesses. He believed that ignoring a problem was the most efficient way to solve it. And then there was Bianca, prodigy, the pageant winner, the girl who could do no wrong because she was the reflection of everything they wanted to be. They never asked who I was. They only told me who I wasn't. As I grew older, I learned to haunt my own house. If I spoke at the dinner table about my art or my grades, the temperature in the room would drop. Madeline would sigh, a sharp, cutting sound, and Richard would open a newspaper. But if Bianca mentioned a new dress or a compliment she received, they would beam like she had invented the sun. By the time I was 17, I was a ghost. The only person who ever anchored me to reality was my Aunt Clara. She was my father's estranged sister, a woman who smelled of turpentine and peppermint tea. She lived in a cluttered studio apartment across the city, and she was the only one who looked at me and didn't look through me. "You have a spine of steel, Rowan," she used to tell me, brushing hair off my forehead after I'd fled to her place in tears. "One day, that steel is going to hold you up when everything else around them collapses." Those words were my lifeline. I remember my 18th birthday. I came downstairs hoping for a card, maybe a cupcake. Instead, the kitchen was a war room for Bianca's debutante ball preparations. Ribbons, fabrics, caterer lists covering every surface. No one looked up. No one said a word. I made myself toast, ate it over the sink, and left for school. When I finally escaped to college in Chicago, I left a handwritten letter on the foyer table, thanking them for housing me. When I called a week later to see if they found it, my mother simply said, "Oh, was that for us? The housekeeper must have tossed it with the junk mail." I told myself it was fine. I told myself that distance would heal the cracks. But you can't heal a bone that was never set properly. You just learn to walk with a limp. Nearly 2 decades later, the past didn't just knock on my door. It kicked it in. It was a rainy Tuesday in Chicago. I had built a good life as a landscape architect, designing gardens that gave people peace, something I never had. I was sorting through my mail when a thick, certified envelope landed in my hands. Subpoena. Case number 49201. Bianca Hayes Sterling versus Elena Rostova. My blood ran cold. I hadn't spoken to Bianca or my parents in 4 years. I had cut the cord to save my own sanity. But now the legal system was dragging me back. Bianca was suing a former business partner for defamation and emotional damages. The witness list included family members to testify to her gentle and supportive character. I sat on my kitchen floor, staring at the paper. I didn't know Elena Rostova. I didn't know what lie Bianca was spinning now. But a deep, ancient alarm bell began to ring in my chest. That night, I opened my laptop and dug into the case details. Elena Rostova was a young marketing executive who had written an exposé on a blog about working with Bianca. She described stolen ideas, gaslighting, and psychological torment. It was standard corporate villainy until the final paragraph. This behavior isn't new. It's a lifetime habit. Ask her older sister about the panic attack in 2005. Ask why she was banned from family holidays for being too dramatic, while her sister laughed. I stopped breathing. The room spun. Someone knew. Someone outside the walls of that brownstone knew about the asthma attack. They knew about the narrative my parents had spun, that I was the unstable one, the liar, the burden. Fragments of memory slammed into me. Aunt Clara calling me, confused, saying my mother told her I was in rehab when I was actually just studying for finals. My graduation invitations never being mailed. The way my cousins stopped speaking to me at weddings. It wasn't just favoritism. It was a smear campaign. A 19-year-long operation to discredit me so that if I ever spoke up, no one would believe me. I stood up, my hands shaking. For years, I had questioned my own sanity. Maybe I was difficult. Maybe I did imagine the cruelty. But this stranger, this Elena, had found the thread. I could have ignored the subpoena. I could have claimed illness. But then I remembered Aunt Clara's voice. You have a spine of steel. My family had spent my entire life silencing me. It was time to make some noise. I didn't call a lawyer immediately. Instead, I called Sasha Cole. Sasha was a woman I hadn't seen since high school. Back then, she was the weird tech girl who ate lunch in the library server room. Bianca used to mock her mercilessly, calling her a cyborg. I used to sneak Sasha cookies from the cafeteria and sit with her while she coded. Today, Sasha was one of the top digital forensic analysts in the Midwest. Bring me everything, Sasha said when I explained the situation. If it exists on a hard drive, I can find the ghost. I flew to Boston 3 days early. I met Sasha in her downtown loft, a space illuminated by the blue glow of server racks. From my carry-on bag, I pulled out the only souvenir I had taken from my childhood home, a dusty external hard drive labeled Hayes Family Archive, 2003 to 2006. My father, Richard, was obsessed with archiving. He backed up everything, security cameras, camcorders, emails, onto a central server. When I left at 18, I copied the entire server onto this drive, thinking I might want the baby photos one day. I had never looked at it. Sasha plugged it in. Let's see what the skeletons look like, she whispered. We sifted through gigabytes of data. And then we found the folder. Living Room Cam, November 14, 2005. My heart hammered against my ribs as Sasha clicked play. The grainy but clear footage showed the pristine white living room. There I was, 17 years old, clutching my throat. The audio captured the terrifying wheeze of my airway closing. And then Bianca's voice, clear as a bell. Suffocate, you drama queen. She stepped into the frame, blocking me from the coffee table. She held the red inhaler behind her back. My parents were visible in the reflection of the hallway mirror, sitting on the love seat, watching the scene like it was a boring opera. Felt nauseous. Stop, I whispered. Wait, Sasha said, her eyes narrowing. Look at the metadata. There are email attachments linked to this date. She opened a separate window. My father's email archives. From Madeline Mother. To Bianca date. November 16, 2005. I've deleted the footage from the main server. Do not speak of this to Aunt Clara. We have the narrative set. Rowan had a manic episode and refused help. Stick to the script. From Bianca to Madeline, don't worry. I already told the guidance counselor she threw the inhaler at me. He thinks she's off her meds. I stared at the screen, tears hot and fast on my cheeks. It wasn't just cruelty. It was a conspiracy. My own mother and sister had plotted to frame me as mentally unstable to cover up their abuse. I wiped my face. "We're going to court," I said. The day of the hearing, the Boston sky was the color of a bruise. I walked into the courtroom wearing a suit of armor disguised as a navy blazer. Bianca sat at the plaintiff's table. She looked immaculate. Pearls, tweed, the picture of aggrieved innocence. Madeline and Richard sat in the gallery, looking like bored royalty. When Bianca saw me enter, she offered a sad, pitying smile, as if to say, "Look at the poor broken thing." She had no idea what was in my briefcase. The judge called the session to order. Bianca took the stand first. She was a masterful performer. She cried on cue. She spoke of how Elena's blog had destroyed her reputation, how she had always been a nurturer, a protector. Then her lawyer made the fatal mistake. "Ms. Hayes Sterling, your sister is here today. Can you tell the court about your relationship?" Bianca sighed, wiping a tear. "I love Rowan, but she has always been troubled, violent even. I've spent my life trying to protect her from her own instability. These rumors about me bullying people, they're just echoes of the lies my sister tells." The judge looked at me with sympathy. My parents nodded solemnly in the back row. My turn came. I took the stand. I didn't look at my family. I looked at the judge. "Ms. Hayes," the defense attorney asked, "do you have any evidence regarding the plaintiff's character?" "I do," I said. "I have digital evidence authenticated by a forensic specialist." My attorney stood up. "Your Honor, we submit Exhibit G, a video file and corresponding email correspondence from the Hayes family server, dated November 2005. Bianca frowned. Madeline shifted in her seat, her poise cracking. The large screen on the wall flickered to life. The audio hissed. Then came the sound. But the courtroom froze. On screen, my teenage self writhed on the floor. Bianca's voice cut through the silence like a whip. "Suffocate, you drama queen." A collective gasp went through the gallery. The video showed her laughing. It showed her hiding the inhaler. It showed my parents watching, sipping tea, doing absolutely nothing. The video ended, but the silence didn't. It hung heavy and thick, suffocating in its own right. Then the emails appeared on the screen. The plot to frame me. The lies to the guidance counselor. The coordinated effort to destroy my credibility. Bianca stood up, her face draining of color. That's a deep fake. That's not real." "Sit down," the judge barked, his face thunderous. "It's a lie," Bianca screamed, her voice losing its polished veneer, turning shrill and ugly. "She's always been jealous. She's a loser. She deserved it." The mask slipped completely. She wasn't the grieving victim anymore. She was the girl with the inhaler, grinning at someone's pain. Madeline tried to stand to intervene, but Richard grabbed her arm, his face gray. He knew. He knew the architecture of their lies had just collapsed. The judge looked from the screen to Bianca with an expression of pure disgust. "In 30 years on the bench," he said quietly, "I have never seen such a callous display of inhumanity." He dismissed the defamation case with prejudice. He ordered a copy of the evidence be sent to the district attorney's office for review regarding potential historical abuse charges. As the gavel banged down, Bianca collapsed into her chair, sobbing real, ugly tears this time. Madeline sat like a statue, staring straight ahead, the socialite queen dethroned. I walked past them. Richard tried to catch my eye. "Rowan," he croaked. I didn't stop. I didn't slow down. I walked out of those double doors and into the rain, and for the first time in 19 years, I took a deep, full breath. The aftermath was a slow-motion car crash for the Hayes family. The civil suits that followed drained them. The judge reviewing Aunt Clara's estate, which had been suspiciously left entirely to Bianca, reopened the probate based on the evidence of fraud and manipulation. Bianca was forced to repay nearly $250,000. Her social standing evaporated overnight. The charity boards, the galas, the country club, they all quietly removed the Hayes name from their rosters. Madeline became a pariah. The video leaked, as public court records often do, and the perfect mother was exposed as a monster. She spends her days in the brownstone, blinds drawn, hiding from a world that finally sees her. I used my portion of the recovered inheritance to start the Steel Spine Project, a non-profit that provides legal and housing assistance to scapegoated family members trying to escape toxic environments. I realized something in the rain that day. Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. And sometimes you have to burn the family tree to the ground to let the sunlight reach the forest floor.